Are the Gospels written by God or the Greeks? A review of the Homeric Epics and the Gospel of Mark, a book by Dennis R. MacDonald. In order to follow along with the multiple comparisons that MacDonald makes to the Odyssey and the Gospel of Mark, we need to do a quick review of the Odyssey. First of all, it was written by the Greek poet Homer. It was written around the 8th century BC. Odysseus, who is the hero, leaves his infant son Telemachus and his wife Penelope to fight in the Trojan War for about 10 years. After the war, Odysseus attempts to sail home, but he encounters several hardships due to the stupidity of his crew and interventions by the god. He's detained for yet another 10 years. While he's away, over 100 men, also called suitors, try to win Penelope's hand, but the suitors are very ill-intended. Telemachus leaves to inquire about his father, but the suitors plot to kill him when he comes back. Odysseus is held captive on Calypso's island, but because he's a carpenter, he builds a boat and he tries to escape. Although Odysseus successfully builds his boat, Poseidon crashes his boat. So Odysseus becomes stranded on an island with a group of folks called the Phaeacians. Odysseus and the Phaeacians become pretty good friends. So Odysseus begins to tell the Phaeacians of his journey after he left Troy. He tells them that he left with an armada of about 12 ships, and on his way back home, the winds and the currents drove him off course to the lands of the Cyclops, the ogres, and the lotus eaters. Odysseus and his comrades find themselves trapped in a cave with Cyclops. Cyclops' cave is obstructed by a huge rock. It's so heavy and so big that even the giant himself couldn't move it. Eventually, Odysseus and his crew do escape the cave of the Cyclops, and they set sail to the island of Aeolus. Here, Odysseus is given a gift by the wind god, but he forgets to tell his crew about the gift. And so he falls asleep at the helm. His crew, out of curiosity, open the bag, and they're blown back to the island of Aeolus. They do set sail again, and this time they land on the island of the cannibals. Unfortunately, the cannibals end up killing most of Odysseus' crew. So finally, they set sail again, this time to the island of Circe. Circe is pretty well attracted to Odysseus, turns Odysseus' crew into swine or pigs, and trances Odysseus to stay with her for up to 1 year. After 1 year's time, Circe recognizes that the crew and Odysseus are going to leave her, so she decides to have a last supper. During the Last Supper, she offers food and drink. The crew is then told that they have to visit the netherworld, find a blind prophet who will then tell them the way back home. So now, on the evening of the Last Supper, Odysseus and his crew are pretty well hungover. Odysseus tries to wake one of his crew by the name of Elpenor. Elpenor, however, has fallen asleep on Circe's roof and forgot that he was there. So when Odysseus wakes him, he falls off the roof and he dies. Odysseus does visit Hades, and he finds Elpenor in Hades. Elpenor asks Odysseus to return and bury his body. Odysseus also finds the blind man and learns his way back home, so he sets sail again. Unfortunately, due to the foolish behavior and acts of his crew and the intervention of Zeus, a strong storm ends up drowning all of his men. Odysseus then washes ashore at Calypso. Now we're back to the Phaeacians. So the Phaeacians are all caught up with his story. They pity him, they give him gifts, they send him back home. Odysseus then awakes on the shores of Ithaca, his home. But Athena has disguised him as an old man. Upon learning of his disguise, Odysseus first reveals himself to his beloved son Telemachus. Interestingly, Odysseus is absolutely unrecognizable by anyone except one woman. She recognizes him and she anoints him with oil. The epic is finally wrapped up when Odysseus gains revenge on the suitors. He kills them all, he reveals himself to everyone, with Penelope being the last.